Welcome back to episode 3 of the Hoggie Shuffle. You got Preston here, the host, co-host Robbie, my brother.
Yo!
We're here to talk about football.
And what a day. We got. We got a lot of good things coming up.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the draft was unreal.
Unbelievable draft. Unbelievable.
Let's just dive right in. Let's be honest here. Offensive linemen drafted in the first 40 picks. What did we have?
9.
9 guys.
Yeah, nine guys drafted.
Right? That's crazy.
It's wild. Like I was still stunned watching it, just thinking that, the big guys are getting their day. Like, it's 2 years in a row now. Like, last year they set the record. Most O-Linemen drafted in the first round, and this year we wasn't much off of that. It was pretty cool to see.
100%. And I think one of the really cool things that I thought was awesome about the draft is how many guys that we talked about last week that you were pumping tires, we were hyping them up, and you just kept hearing their name get called, and you kept hearing it again and again and again and again. And it was just amazing.
It just made me feel like, look, man, I kind of feel like I know a little bit what I'm talking about. So yeah, as I said, made me feel pretty good about myself.
That's
made me feel pretty good that, all these young men got drafted, which was absolutely stunning.
Well, exactly. You get to see all these young guys, all these offensive linemen finally get their flowers. And I'm just going to go down the list. I thought it was just unreal. Boom. We had Will Campbell, 4th pick, 4th overall, offensive tackle out of LSU. That's unreal. Patriots are getting a dog out of that guy.
Dog.
Oh, we got Armand Membou, O-tackle out of Missouri, going to the Jets, 7th overall pick. Kelvin Banks Jr. Now, you guys are going to remember that name.
Guy.
Remember that name, I'll tell you what. Kid's out of Texas. He's going to the Saints. I think it's an awesome place for him to land. Tyler Booker from Bama. He's going to the Cowboys. So hopefully, that we just talked about that last week with their offensive line situation. So I think that's going to help them out a lot there too. You got Gray Zabel at the 18th overall pick. Where's he from? North Dakota State. Went to the Seahawks. That's awesome.
This next one I thought was a slipper. Like, this one, I thought he was going to go higher than he did.
Who's that?
Josh Conley Jr.
Oh, yeah. That's the dog out of Oregon.
He was my guy. Like, I thought 100%. He was going to go fast.
100%. We didn't talk about Donovan Jackson, 24th pick. We didn't talk about John Simmons, 32nd pick. And we didn't talk about Jonas Savalia. That's a butchered one for me. But, he's from Arizona, went to the Dolphins. That's so cool to see 9 guys in the first 40 picks. That's unreal.
Yeah, we've got a lot of key highlights. As I said, we'll just touch on them again like we did last weekend. Will Campbell, selected 4th, went to the Patriots. Huge. Like, if you're a guy and you get to go to the Patriots and you know their rich history and you see all the things they've done, I would be so excited as an offensive lineman to go to that organization.
Oh, yeah. So, my question is, this many O-linemen going early, like in the first 40 picks, now, I know I'm not going to, it's a weird question to ask. Does it surprise you? Because I don't think it does surprise you, because I think that you obviously were on this last week talking about all these stuff. But, do you think this is where actual football games are going to be won? Do you think having these offensive linemen drafted early is going to make a big difference versus having a skill position player drafted early?
Now, we got some guys on this list that are fresh and ready to get off and go start in the NFL. Like, again, let me just hit my list up again.
Sorry, well, you talked about like Kelvin Banks Jr. He's ready to go.
Yeah. He's ready to go. I think you'll see him play interior. I don't know if he'll be a tackle coming out like he was in college, but you'll see him play some interior reps this year, I think, for sure.
100%. Same as Will Campbell. I think, being 4th overall pick, there's a little, when you're in the top 5, there's a little bit of precedence that you're not a guaranteed starting spot, but it's almost like you're going to be a 6-man. You're going to be a rotationary guy. You're going to be in the show. That's the reality there.
Now, Kelvin Banks Jr., I said this last week, I wholeheartely believe that he comes in the league and he's a starting left tackle. Like, he's ready to go. He's got the goods. He's got the brain. He's got the body to be that left tackle spot. I foresee him jumping right in.
100%. And then obviously Armand Membou, I think he's going to be a really successful guy. Same thing. He's got the size, obviously. He's a big dog.
Definitely. Again, he's a rush tackle, right? Like, you're going to set him up on the right side and let him go to town all day long with your read option and all your plays like that. Going to the Jets, hopefully, with the quarterback situation that got going on there, that read option will be big for them, because that's a big play. He's a great read option O-lineman.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, with them trying to finally protect the quarterbacks, do you think that we're almost a little bit too late situation now? Do you think maybe they should have started to, do this a little bit earlier in the last 5 years, try to get more offensive linemen in the squad?
Yes and no. I mean, you go take the risk on getting a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and we all knew the risk. I mean, you've seen the risk. What happened? He got hurt. First year comes out, next year he's mediocre at best, and at that point, could you have had a better offensive line for him? Probably, but would it have mattered that much? He's not mobile enough in today's day and age game for him to be successful. I don't think.
I completely agree with that. I do.
You give him 5 best linemen ever, but if you can't play the game like it is today, it's not your dad's NFL anymore. It's a new day and age. Like you got guys that are,
100%.
it's
Kids are training from 9, 10 years old up. I mean, they got all these programs now and all these academies where they're training up.
It used to be just sit in the pocket, throw the ball, get outside if you needed to. So we'll get a guy that, can get away when he wants to. But now we want that guy all the time. We want to know that, okay, in the midst of the battle, in the heat, he's just going to be like, okay, nope, check, gone.
Donovan Jackson going to the Vikings, for example, I think, if you're building an interior lineman, round 1 or round 2, do you think it matters more to have more of a mobility lineman or more of an anchor lineman, an IQ lineman? What do you think makes more sense to be, an early round draft pick for an offensive lineman?
Well, definitely. I mean, I think that the guys that make it in the NFL are always IQ guys. They're always that guy that shows up, tests well. You could have the best bench press you want in the world, but if you can't see past the lineman in front of your face, like what are you going to do in pro football? Like you need to see 3 spots at once and be able to check down, go down, and understand what you're doing, what your assignment is, and how all 5 guys fit into that place. So I mean, you gotta be smart all the time.
100%. And you got to have as a, GM, when you're looking at those linemen to pick too, you got to think what's going to work best with your depth, what's going to work better for your team in those situations. And, I guess last question I want to pose to you with regards to this segment here is, if you had one word to describe this year's O-line class, what would you give it?
I'd call them rugged. There's not a lot of guys coming out with big mouths and with flashy talk, and you didn't see the offensive line talking about anything. They just wanted to get picked because at the end of the day, we're just hardworking. Most of the linemen I know and I've ever met just hardworking, high intensity motors that just love to do what they do. They've you get that craft going and you just master it.
A good term I like to use, and I've got it from another coach and buddy of mine as well too, is O-linemen are lunchbox kind of guys. We're going to work, we're putting our stuff in our lunchbox, we're grabbing everything, we got our hard hat on, and we're going to the storm. That's just how it goes.
100%.
Now, we're going to do a little side segment here. Last week we talked about it a little bit. We've been giving lots of love to the offensive linemen, but we do, linemen are linemen. We want to shine a little bit of love to them defensive linemen as well too. So I want to talk about some defensive linemen that were drafted in the first round here. So let's go overall. First overall for defensive line, everyone knows his name, Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State, going to the Giants. This one's a little funny one in my opinion because he had asked the best defensive player of all time to wear his jersey number on his team, and unfortunately he got a hard no on that one.
Well, he went to the Giants. Yeah. Well, and see, I was talking about that with a buddy last night, and it was just like, what? Why do we continue? Like you're an NFL guy, you've retired, you're going on to do your own thing. What does that number matter to you anymore? Like what do your stats matter at the point of when you see somebody young coming out? Why would you not want that guy to relive what you lived?
Okay, so here's where I see it. If it wasn't a guy where it's like unanimous, like everyone can agree, like, dude, I'm an Eagles fan. I absolutely hate the Giants with everything to my core. But I can still agree that he's the real LT, that he's the real best defensive player of all time. And so if he was just an average Joe, just an average schlubby, the jersey wouldn't have been retired in the first place. So I don't think it's fair that, we're only, when did all that go down? We're only, 40 years past when that happened and his achievements happened. Give it, I know it's saying 40 years, but you don't need to take his legacy away yet.
Not quite 40 years. I'd say more so like 20, 25 years. But then I look at the number 1 pick. He got picked. He's coming out, Tennessee Titans. He wants number 1. So what do? They go and see Warren Moon. I know Warren Moon's not in the same class as LT, but he's up there. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking running, gunning quarterbacks, which is the way of the future. You put Warren Moon in today's NFL, he succeeds, and he succeeds hard. You know what I mean? Like, he would be right up there with the best of the running quarterbacks that can throw the ball. And without a question, he gave up his number 1 that was retired. Houston Oilers, retired, and he gave it up. So I gotta look at that, and I gotta say, hey, this guy understands. He understands it. It's not my NFL anymore. It's the new guy's NFL, and to
And like I said, it goes both ways. There's always going to be two sides to the coin. I think being an
100%.
offensive player is a little bit different than being a defensive player. I think you have a lot of different accolades as an offensive player. As a defensive player, you only get so much, and I think you really need to hold on to that. And that's the reality. If someone comes along and let's say Abdul Carter in a few years ends up being the guy and being that great, ask for it then. Ask for it again. You can always change your number.
Now the next question is Mason Graham good enough to play on the same side with
Myles Garrett?
Excuse me, Myles Garrett. Yes.
Honestly, I think so. I think you're going to see a solid 1-2 punch with those guys. I think you put Mason Graham on the interior. Myles Garrett's such an athlete. Even if his size, he can still hop into that kind of 3-tech role and just be an absolute dog. I think that's really going to be a really disgusting on defensive line, and I think that whatever he can learn, whatever he can absorb from Myles Garrett, is going to in turn make him such a better defensive lineman for the rest of his career.
Nice.
Now, next guy obviously is Kenneth Grant, D tackle out of Michigan, went to Miami Dolphins. So I think that's just unreal.
Yeah, they were missing somebody when they traded. I'm slipping on my own guys right now. They traded a big D tackle over to the Raiders last year, and they traded Wilkins over, so they left a big hole in their defense. So I think this guy will come in nicely this year and fit in there for him.
And I got to correct myself, actually. There was one more before that. Was the 11th pick, Mikael Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia, went to San Fran. So, I mean, that's going to be a nice combo with him and Nick out there. I think that, again, same type of situation where he can learn all the things he can learn from that as a defensive end, a young guy coming through. When you have such a good veteran, I mean, that just is going to, in turn, to make you such a better player.
Now, I'm not sure if you put it on here. I'm not sure if I see it. Oh, is it this one? Talik
Williams?
Talik Williams. Is he the new guy, the heaviest guy ever in the NFL? Is that the heaviest draft pick?
No, I don't believe that's the one. No, sorry. There is a guy, though. What's
coming
that
out
guy?
Of Florida. He's coming out of Florida.
450-pound draft pick?
Yeah, he's out of Florida Gators, I believe.
I've heard they're nicknaming him. They're nicknaming him the tush push stopper. He's a 450-pound draft pick. He wasn't selected in the draft.
Smoked. No, he wasn't. I think he was just a free agent.
But no, he signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I've seen that.
So that's awesome. Yeah, he went. That's really awesome. I mean, being a big guy like that would be really tough to be in the NFL, and I think you're going to see him probably drop a little bit before he gets into the league. But to be able to move at his size and roll around and rip around like that, I mean, that's a dog.
Now, what do you see out of Shamir Stewart, edge rusher out of Texas A&M, went to the Cincinnati Bengals?
Ooh. Yeah, I think he's going to be pretty great. I mean, obviously 6'6", 290. He's known for his size and explosiveness. Like, he is a dog.
That's a big end, man. That's a big body to stop.
Big boy. And same thing, they got a decent defensive line out there with the Bengals where they're going to, again, we're going to work with those young guys. They're going to get them going. They're going to really push through.
They got that sack leader, Hendrickson.
Yeah, exactly, right? So they got that one defensive end there. I can't remember his name. I think it is Henderson there, who's just an absolute dog.
Yeah.
And guys like that, where they just train up those young guys and get them where they need to be.
They haven't paid him yet, though. He said he's not playing with them until he gets paid. So
now that we talked about the defensive line, I wanted to show a little bit of love. Again, this is going to be mainly about the offensive linemen, but linemen are linemen. We want to give the love to all the guys out there. We're going to make sure everybody understands that the big boys need love too.
We're always looking at you, buddy. We're always looking at you guys.
So the next one I wanted to pipe up and talk about was there was a couple guys last week we had talked about that didn't get picked in the first 40. We talked about those 9 guys in the first 40 picks, unreal. But there's still some other guys that got drafted. So one of the big ones I wanted to talk about was Tate Radledge, offensive guard out of Georgia. I know we talked about him last week there, but a big thing that we didn't really say is, he only allowed 1 sack. It's 685 pass blocking snaps since 2022. So 3 seasons out there and allowed 1 sack. That is an absolute dog. Like, that is a dog.
Right.
He's going with the Lions. I think he's probably going to compete for at least a rotationary role or possibly starting a guard for them. He's really going to be successful, I think. And again, like I said, we gave him the flowers, and I want to see him be successful now. All these guys we talked about, all these dudes that we were talking about, I really want to see that success happen.
Like, could you imagine Tate Radledge playing guard at 6'6", 300 pounds?
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous, right? But when you have the skill and the ability to do it, yeah, guess what? The world's your oyster.
Right? Just imagine, like, you're lining up against a big D tackle, and you got a Matt coming down, and you got a 6'6", 300 pounder sitting right there blocking for you. Interior wise, whoa, I'm excited
out.
about that.
Yeah, exactly. There was a guy you talked about last week too. Was that center?
Oh yeah, Jared Wilson.
Yeah, he teamed up with Will Campbell there. Go to Pets.
Nice. Third round. I've seen that.
Right? I mean, so that's going to be awesome having those two guys together. Two young guys coming in for your offensive line to protect Drake May. I mean, that's unreal.
Well, I mean, too, like he's a first center. Like he's 300 plus pounds, 6'3" for a center. Like that's a big center.
Well, you got to realize this. Now, I seen this morning. He recorded a 4.84 40-yard dash. He was the fastest among all the offensive linemen, and he had a relative athletic score of 9.98. He is going to be a dog.
Second team All-CC 2024.
Right?
SEC, excuse me.
Like 6'3", 310. I mean, that is an absolute perfect size for a center.
I'm not sure he'll start right off the bat.
I don't think he's going to start right off the bat. No, this situation, I don't think it's going to be an instant starter.
But I mean, yeah, you never know. Like, depending on which, like where the team sees him and all that stuff, like he might start.
Most people, I don't know if you guys know this, but we are coming out of Canada. We live in Canada. I live in Alberta, Canada. He lives in British Columbia, Canada.
Hey,
I noticed there was a couple offensive linemen that were from our neck of the woods.
Oh, what do you got? What do you got
drafted?
What do you got for me?
Well, the first one is a guy named Isaiah Adams. Okay, so he got drafted the Cardinals, 3rd round, 71st pick. He's out of Ajax, Ontario.
Small college, like Div 2, Div 3 college.
Yeah, Illinois fighting Illinois, but I mean, he's 6'5", 320. He's built like a true NFL guard. I mean, he is an absolute monster. Very smart player. He's got the versatile. He can start at both left guard and left tackle. Like, he can really push through. He's most likely going to be a guard in the NFL. I think that's where he's probably going to land. But again, it's so cool to see these guys come out of Canada and work their butts off and actually make the league and get drafted into the NFL. Like, that's just unreal.
It's what dreams are made of. What was that guy that got? I think he went to the Lions in the 4th round.
Giovanni Manu.
Yeah.
So that guy. So this one's even cooler. Now, this one's even cooler in my opinion. This dude got drafted right out of the University of British Columbia, UBC Thunderbirds. He's 6'7", 352 pounds, and runs a 5-second 40-yard dash.
And he's meaner and stuff because he's a Samoan, so he must be meaner and stuff.
I'm telling you right now, he is going to be a dog. People can mark my words on this one. This is Canadian-born All-Pro right here. This guy is going to be a unit. You give this dude a couple seasons on the Lions, man, and watch out. He is extremely raw.
And he also had a good 40 time. 5.0
That's what I said.
340.
5-second 40 at 352 pounds, dude. 6'7".
6'7", but holy smokes.
Most likely, he's probably not going to start his first year. I don't think he's going to instantly go to a starting role or anything like that. But I think he's going to work his way up, possibly be a 6-man, work his way onto the roster and really be a guy that could possibly pop into a right tackle, right guard situation.
Well, he's going to have a learning curve, too, because he's got to switch up his game. Like, I love Canadian football, but I mean, it's a lot different than American football. It's, a lot different.
Oh, I mean, as you know, the biggest difference, obviously, so people out there, just so you guys know, in Canadian football, the biggest difference for linemen is the yard difference. So with American football, there's pretty much, you have the, what's it called there? The encroachment, so you can't cross the line of scrimmage. That's all.
Yeah, 1 yard.
You can't go over the line.
We get 1 yard.
But in Canadian football, we get 1 whole yard. So we get 3 feet where you can't even cross the 3-foot area. So there's a huge difference when you set and play versus having just to go instantly and be right in front of you. So that's going to be a big learning curve for a guy like that at his size, especially. Now, question I have for you, Rob, is a bit older than me, so you'll know this for sure. Is when do you remember 2 Canadian offensive linemen getting this much buzz, getting drafted in the 3rd and 4th round?
In Canadian linemen, in my memory, I can't say off the top of my head that we've had too many guys go that early in the NFL draft. Usually you're looking at linemen. We're looking at linemen 3rd round, 4th round, free agents, especially the Canadian guys who pick them up as free agents. I just look at a guy like Chuba Hubbard who came from a small town, Edmonton. It's not that small, but I mean, compared to like a Toronto metro city, it's pretty small. And then you look at buddy that came out of UBC. I mean, I guarantee he came from a small place. BC spread out. It's got a lot of towns in it, but not a lot of huge towns in it.
Well, he's from Pitt Meadows.
Yeah.
What's the population of Pitt Meadows? Population of Pitt Meadows is 19,146 people. He's from nowhere.
What about Isaiah Adams? What do you think his future holds? Solid depth guy. Is he going to come out? Do you think he'll get some reps in spring camp and maybe possibly make a
Honestly,
showing?
I honestly do. Yeah, I honestly think he could probably fight for a spot. I think he fights for maybe even a starting guard role. I think with his size and his ability, man, he's going to be a really strong guy. The difference between these two guys, obviously, is he's played in the NCAA. He's played in the American side a little bit more, so I think he understands it. I think he's going to be a little bit faster getting it off the bat. I think with Giovanni, it's going to be more of a Jordan Mailata situation where now obviously Jordan didn't know football at all, but I just think it is learning a different sport. It is a bit different situation, So I think that's what's going to be the biggest difference between these two guys. One's going to be able to hit the ground running, and one's going to need a little bit of help to get going, and then he's going to be successful.
You got to look at the Canadian football game because we only have 3 downs. It lacks in the rushing. So
Exactly.
My biggest fandom for being an offensive lineman, and why I love the NFL is because I love to watch the ball get ran, and I love to watch it get ran down people's throats. And sometimes in Canadian football, you just don't get that option, in the sheer fact that we got one less down.
Now, I know I kind of mentioned it a little bit ago, but I wanted to ask you this too: is why do you think that it's, in my opinion, anyways, it's so much cooler that a guy gets drafted right out of U Sports, right out of Canada, than if he went to the NCAA and played Div 1 or Div 2?
Well, because at home on our land, everybody's going to know your name. If you're a football guy, and as I said, I brought up Chuba Hubbard, and Chuba Hubbard, watching him, I think he played high school football right around the same time you were playing high school football. He
was about a year younger than I was.
Our paths never crossed. We played them the year after that he graduated, but the momentum that guys like him and Chase Claypool have brought in the last couple of years is they're letting people know that, hey, there's a lot of good football players up in Canada. And now that it's not just based on your size and your speed and things like that, now that you can fine tune your game and train and do all those things, it's getting a lot easier to look up to Canada and say, hey, maybe they got some guys up there. Let's go look at them. Let's go make sure that we're doing our due diligence to say, hey, maybe we can expand up north.
Well, and I think that's what's happening in the NFL, and you look everywhere, not just Canada, but I mean, they're going out to the UK, they're going out to Germany, they're going to all these places where they're saying, hey, these guys can ball, especially the linemen, because at the end of the day, the skill positions, it's a bit more of a learning curve, and it's a bit different with offensive linemen. I mean, if you're a big, brooded guy and you have a bit of footwork, we can teach you. We can get you where you need to be. I promise you that. We can get you where you need to be. If you have a bit of aggression, you're sitting there and you're a little angry, we'll get it out of you.
I was watching a Chad Johnson clip, and he said when he came up and played in the CFL, like there was tons of guys he said that he thought should have been playing in the show, but he brought up a very valid point to that, is that there's no room. With only 32 teams.
Saying that, like a buddy of mine, he had ended up he played for Hamilton. He was at Hamilton Tiger Cats training camp. Him and his twin brother, both really good running backs. They were just monsters. And they go through the whole training camp. Everything's going great. It's looking like they're probably going to make the squad and get signed as undrafted agents. And then all of a sudden, there was 3 running backs that cut off 3 NFL teams, and they just show up to training camp, and it's not even a tryout. They make the squad. There's always one. There's always going to be the one in a million. There's always going to be those certain Canadians that just they stand out above the rest, right? But
Definitely.
when you have so much more people, it's just the opportunity in the States is so much more there because of the fact they have more coaching and more population, more players, more. It's how it always goes. It's like when you look at divisions in schools, when you have those Div 1 schools or Tier 1 schools, Tier 2 schools, like the amount of people you can choose from to get those athletes is just so much higher.
Right. Well, you look at our little school that I coached at and you played at. Like, I think this year we'll probably have our first kid get drafted.
I could honestly see that.
Carter Kettle and then possibly Matty Udine to get drafted into the CFL would be absolutely stunning.
Right, and you just see those kids that were they proved the notion of just if you work harder than everybody else, you're going to be successful. And it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you start. It just proves that if you look down the barrel of the gun and you say, I'm going to work harder than everybody else, damn. Like I said before, the world's your oyster.
100%.
I posed some questions last week. I was talking a little bit about it. I wanted to see who people thought their most hyped offensive lineman was going to be in the draft, right? And speaking of the buzz we got going on there, one of the people that we kept seeing get commented down there was Armand Membou. So I wanted to give a little special kind of segment towards him, a little bit extra shout out towards him, and just give that love where it's deserved.
Like I said last week, 2-3 weeks ago, he was not on the top 20, and somehow he slid into that top 10. And that's, You got to be a guy that shows up at the Senior Bowl, a guy that shows up on Combine Day, and absolutely sell out for your future. And that
100%.
guy, everybody knew his name after Senior Bowl, and everybody knew his name after the Combine.
Well, and like he moves like he's 30, 40 pounds lighter than he is. He has that ability where he's just floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee. He's coming through. He's playing nasty. He's looking out just to take heads off. He's out there just taking names, and that's what you need in the NFL. And you get the Jets I think they're going to get an absolute dog with that situation. I think with the years and years of chaos that they've had with their program, I think that they're really going to be able to get this unit there, and I think it's going to be successful. I think he's going to really work.
They're cursed. They're cursed. You know what I mean? That New York curse thing, that's a real thing. I mean, look at the Yankees. Look how long they had to wait.
Now I'm going to say this. Highlights,
Excuse me, the Red Sox.
0 sacks allowed in 2024 season at starting 13 games, all at left tackle. First team all ACC. Top 5 in run block win rates among Power 5 schools. And he was graded as Missouri's highest overall offensive lineman for 2 straight seasons, PFF rankings. Okay, this is Membou. He is going to most likely be a day 1 starting left tackle. He's going to develop into a Pro Bowl player within 2 to 3 years, and he is going to instantly upgrade the Jets. Now, I'm going to ask you this one. Can he finally be the guy that ends that Jets curse?
Well, 2 things. He's never going to be a left tackle. He is a dig your feet in the ground type of O guard, O tackle, right side. As I said before, like he is playing mean, he's playing dirty. He's going to get the linebacker. He's going to flow off the block and get wherever you need him to go. Like, again, I see him day 1 coming in, push for guard reps, and by the time he is good enough to play guard, they're going to just put him right back to right tackle. He's a big dude, and he's thick. His hips are really, really active when he's blocking. And when you're a big guy and you got active hips and a huge chest to go with it, like, that's just a recipe for nasty.
Now, another one we talked about in the social media this week, I'd asked who was the better division. We were talking about that. Me and you were actually talking about that last week. So I clipped in a little part of the podcast, threw it on socials, and it was talking about who was going to be better. It was the AFC North versus the NFC East. And surprisingly, a lot of the comments out there actually were saying that the NFC North is going to be the best division in the league. So I thought we'd talk about that a little bit and maybe have a little...
Question mark? Question mark?
So, I mean, first off, gut feeling. Do you think the NFC North is the best division in the NFL right now?
I have to say no. And I mean, I don't want to call too many people out, but we're counting on a guy like Caleb Williams to be part of that. And he's young. He had struggles last year, some really bad struggles. I don't think that that's going to go too far. Now, you got your 2 that that are going to be good. We got the Bears, the Vikings. We got the Lions, who have shown up in the last few seasons, who have become otherworldly. And then you got the, leading Green Bay Packers. Like, the Packers, they're just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's they got something in the water in Lambeau Field. But somehow, for the last 30 years, 40, 50 years, they have just continued to show up and show out almost better than any team out there. They go from Favre to Rodgers, now to Love. Like, how hard is it to hit 3 quarterbacks like that back to back to back? I got a couple buddies that are Packers fans, and it was just like, I'm a Raiders fan. My team's up, never, but sometimes we have good games, and watching them be happy every year is sometimes really stinks. But again, like in the NFC, like that's sure it's tough. But what is Minnesota? Like, Minnesota's never won anything. Detroit's never won anything.
Right.
Green Bay's won it all. The Bears, they had a luck where they got the best players in the league. You got sweetness and you don't win with sweetness? Well, come on.
How rare is it that you'd have 4 teams that can realistically win 9 games and just go through like that? Now, I know we didn't have 4, we had 3. But again, like we're talking about, it's so rare to have all 4 teams to be successful.
100%.
Typically, it's 2 to 3 teams out of each division that's going to be good, right? So when you can say, hey, the NFC North is going to be the best, are they going to be the best? Are they going to have all 4 teams be successful? I don't think so. I think that, like we talked about last week, you look at the AFC North, where 3 out of their 4 teams are most likely going to be absolute unit dogs in the AFC and absolutely dominate.
100%.
Right? And that's, talk like going back to the NFC East, 3 out of those 4 teams are going to be dogs again. Now, I think the Giants possibly could go into the right direction if they can get their quarterback situation figured out. But that's, they want to have 6 quarterbacks in the room and figure it out and have them all tussle out and look at each other like they're Spider-Man. They can do that.
I'm sorry, but just because Buddy played at Ole Miss like Eli Manning did, doesn't mean he's coming out and he's going to be what you need him to be. Again, I don't think any quarterback in the NFL draft was a day one starter this year or last year.
No. It's been pretty weak. Like I've heard next year is supposed to be a little bit more quarterback heavy. There's going to be a little better.
Well, they're saying Arch Manning, right? They're saying Arch Manning's coming.
I'm still not sold on Arch Manning. I think you're going to be in the same. I think here's the situation. Here's the situation you're in. So this year, look what happened to Sanders, right? Obviously, the league tried sending a message, or they were trying to do something that really showed they don't want the NFL parents to be involved in what's going on. 100%. So is it fair to say that the same situation is going to happen next year to Arch Manning, because you're going to have obviously Peyton and Eli in everyone's ears saying, this is where my nephew's going, this is where my nephew's going, and it's just going to be the same sort of shit show.
Well, I'm gonna go with, I believe this year what's called common courtesy. So they let Archie Manning know, hey, you're not doing this again. You already did to the NFL once. You had every team up in flusters trying to pull what John Elway did, right? Okay, well, I'm just going to sit out. And it's not the same as Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson got absolutely
railroaded. Jackson got shafted.
He got railroaded by the Buccaneers. They screwed 100%. Him over so bad. So him holding out is not in the same scenario as, a guy like Deion Sanders talking about the Browns, when Deion Sanders hasn't played in the league in almost 20 years. So it's just you might have been the greatest back in the day, but you're not going to see Michael Jordan going out there when his grandkids are maybe playing in the NBA and pulling their contracts and making this stuff, because he follows the money. Obviously, I don't know how good Deion is and how much money Deion has, but there's a time when Deion was on the bottom. He didn't have all the money. He had to work back. He had to take these other jobs. He had to keep playing in the NFL just so that he could have some walking around money.
100%. And, I think that really shows when you look at guys coming in where they started from the bottom to where they're at now, where those kids that get to go in with a silver spoon, it just really affects where they're at and what the fans are going to look at.
And in my eyes, that's the way that it should be. You shouldn't be able to just come out and be like, no, I don't like what you're about, so I'm not coming to you. I think that, if you had this piece and this piece, I'm going to come to you. And it's just well, again, we're paying you hundreds of millions of dollars. That's our choice. You know what I mean? Sorry, I'm not going to New York because they gave, dumbest free agency in league history, getting rid of Saquon Barkley. You think that's going to tarnish them for the rest of their life? Absolutely not. Nor should it. Look at the Raiders, Jamarcus Russell.
As an Eagles fan, I will never let it die. I will keep it for the rest of my life that the Giants are the jokest franchise alive because of that video that they made where they're sitting there going, oh man, I hope he doesn't go to the Eagles. I just really hope I won't be able to sleep at night if he goes to the Eagles.
Why even give him the opportunity? But why even give him the opportunity? The guy was 100% bought into the New York Giants.
He had no problem. He was staying. But when you want to say, you know what, guys, we're not going to pay you, but I'll tell you what, go to the market, go see what you're worth, and if we think you're worth that much, we'll match it.
100%.
Yeah.
He would have done.
He'd a full bag.
He'd have done what Barry Sanders did to Detroit. He'd give him 12, 13 seasons and said, hey.
He'd have stayed there forever.
I did everything that I could. See you later.
100%. He never would have left.
Right? And again, what was he flashier last year because of the lineman he had? 100%. 1,000%.
Let's not pretend like that didn't help his career go. But I mean, that's any running back's dream, is to get to go to a situation where A, the coach wants you to be successful, and B, you have the greatest offensive line to run, the greatest run blocking offensive line to run behind. And just you see that one clip last year where he had the ability to break his own personal season record, right? And they're up. I think we were up by 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, and he just sits there, looks at Nick, and he just, nah, let the young guys eat. Let the young guys go.
I loved it.
And that to me shows so much character, man. That makes me such a proud fan and such a proud football watcher where I see those guys and it's because at the end of the day, the dudes that play in the NFL, you're playing for the kids. You're out there, you're playing for these young kids that look up to you, that want to watch you be successful, that want to watch you guys go out there and kill it. So when you do stuff like that and you show your character, man, that just shows that little 10-year-old, that little 12-year-old out there that he's going to possibly go out there and do the same thing when he's being successful and give the other guy their flowers and just keep it going, man. It's just, that's so important when it comes to sports.
And that's what I loved about the Warren Moon thing versus You know what I mean? It's just like it's not about us. It's not about you guys anymore. Like you guys are old. You're in the record books. Like your record book is never going anywhere. But to take a number away from a kid, and that's his number. He's had the same number since he was a little boy, 7 years old, playing Pop Warner football in America, or playing Pee Wee football up in Canada. That's my number. Like I'm dying for that. You know what I mean? Like that's if that's what it is, that's what it is. And you're a number one draft pick and you want your number, your team's going to accommodate it for you. And the guy that is retired in the Hall of Fame comes out and says, boy, I think this young man, he's got what it takes. He's a great leader. He's amazing for his community. I'm going to do that. I'm going to unretire that number with my blessing just to let him have it. Same thing.
I think we really tracked everything down. We talked about obviously the offensive linemen that got drafted. We wanted to talk about the first 9 picks that were obviously in the first 9 offensive linemen picked that were the first 40 picks in the NFL. We talked about the social media jabber from this week. We wanted to go over that and make sure in the comments, make sure you're getting on there, like, subscribe, do what we need to do, man. Get stuff going. We want to push this up, and like we talked about last week, we need your guys' help. So when we're saying here we want to push the offensive line, we want to talk about these guys. I'm talking about you guys. I'm talking about the offensive linemen that are out there in the world. Man, you know how it is. We deserve this. We deserve our flowers. We deserve to get talked about more. Let's 100%. Keep it up, man. Let's keep pumping it.
Pump that Deion Dawkins, man. Pump him. Deion Dawkins says, let's get this Protector of the Year award going. So, again, as I said, I'm plugging it every episode. As long as you'll have me on here, I'll be plugging that every episode.
Oh, always. Right?
It's the most important thing the NFL needs to do.
100%. And like I said, we just need to make sure we're getting these offensive linemen love. That's the biggest thing. We're out there, we're getting in car crashes every single play. We're getting in all these scraps on the field. We're protecting those quarterbacks. Look at Will Campbell. He's going to die for Drake May. He's going to go 100%. Out there and be an absolute dog, and just guys like that where it's just that's the true effort, that's the true determination to this sport and the thing we love doing is playing football.
100%.
Well, all right, guys, that's going to end the episode off. Have a great rest of your day here. I will see you back next week.
We'll be back.
Hoggie's out.
Hoggie's out.